Thank you very much. Can you hear me? This is on for that exceptionally kind introduction. Thank you. And also thank you so much for having me here today. It really is a great pleasure because it's such a really crucial issue that we're facing in the world today. And, as Ranjana was saying, that we were sort of talking earlier, and I think there are always sort of new frontiers where gender equality is contested. And this is one of them, as far as I'm concerned. I'm still learning about the impact of the digital world, that both positive and negative, on gender relations and issues for women and men, girls and boys. And so it's forums like this, I think, that will really help us understand that more. And I completely agree. We have to work together to be able to really understand and see what we can do jointly to improve the safety and security for everyone online. So at UN Women, one of our key areas of work is working with partners to end violence against women. And we do look for alliances in that work. So technology facilitated gender-based violence broadens our understanding of the impact of gender inequality, and we really have to look at how do we close the gaps and the problems within the whole tech area to reduce gender-based violence. So my talk will really focus on gender-based violence. I know that there's many other areas of safety and security that may be connected but are different as well. And Ranjana, you talked about some of those too. So the gender-based violence online is a global issue, and it really does constitute a human rights violation, as other forms of gender-based violence do as well. It's rooted in the same kind of power imbalances and injustices that offline violence is. It really extends offline violence into a whole other area and potential for violence against women and girls. So we know that the global prevalence and impact of this kind of violence ranges from 16% to 58% of women and girls around the world have experienced online violence already. And as you rightly say, it's the global majority where many of these crimes and impact occur. I just wanted to note that today I saw on Instagram that Meta has created these teen accounts to try and sort of limit violence. I know that my own two 16-year-old daughters are going to hate that limitation, because it comes with a whole lot of limitations they won't agree with. I'm very happy about it. Not that they want to experience violence. I think they'll be happy about that reduction. But I think it's a really important step forward. But it still does just cover 4 countries where there's nowhere near the amount of young people that there are in India alone. The number of young people in India is bigger than the whole population of those 4 countries put together. So it's really crucial that those kinds of safeties cover the global majority as well. So there was a socio-legal study by IT for Change that highlighted in India 31% of women reported online sexual harassment. That's huge, those numbers. Women in public life face disproportionate risks, so it's worse actually for women journalists, for example, and I would say women politicians also get trolled horribly. I don't know whether any of you have listened to a podcast called Who Trolled Amber Heard? Any of you listened to that? Fascinating. So, Amber Heard was the wife of Johnny Depp. She was sued by Johnny Depp in the US for slander, and the court found in favour of Johnny Depp, even though the British courts had tried the same case earlier, actually, and he was found to have been abusive in 12 different instances, including major abuse. And these investigators have really looked at the kind of the online violence against her, this coordinated bot warfare, basically, that changed people's opinions about her in the legal system. So it was really almost impossible for her to get a fair trial. So these kinds of online violence, as you rightly said, Ranjana, really stand to change our democratic institutions as well. And I think there's other evidence of that in other parts of the world too. So, as the internet and social media use increases in India, so does the prevalence of this kind of violence. The Indian government has taken initiatives to address the issue, including awareness campaigns, reporting mechanisms, cyber courts, and cyber cells. And I'm interested in hearing more from the police about these kinds of initiatives. But barriers to implementation of some of the regulations or the legislations continue to exist. The Information Technology Act 2000 addresses violations in privacy, publication of sexually explicit or obscene content, such as non-consensual intimate images circulations, and breaches in confidentiality, but it doesn't explicitly cover psychological gender-based violence against women outside of domestic settings. As digital divides of gender and class widen online, so do the vulnerabilities of women and girls to online harassment, as I've said earlier. So, to fully address the issue, we really have to understand experiences in India through an intersectional lens of class, caste, disability, gender, sexuality, religion, education, access to technology, given the gender digital divide in India and globally. So UN Women overall has quite a comprehensive approach to this kind of violence that has emerged. This is something that we as an institution are still grappling with ourselves. But we have adopted, supporting the development. I mean, our role is to support the development of legislation regulations that increase protection. Our role globally, again, is looking at, trying to get reports on the data and the experiences that help policymakers make good decisions about policy. And also looking at how do survivors of this kind of violence access appropriate services as well. Plus, there's the important work of transforming gender norms to eliminate this kind of violence. Countries like Finland and Iceland are advocating for the increased discussions around gender-based violence experienced in online forums. And so, there's a deliberate focus in some countries, as there is here. Again, we were just talking beforehand, my own country, Australia, has an e-safety officer. And her role is to really try and educate Australians about the issues and to lobby and advocate to government about how to put in the safety rails. And I've heard her talk in particular about, we generally accept now in many countries of the world that you can't, when you're driving a car, you need a seat belt. That didn't used to happen, and so lots of people came to grief because of accidents and they died, whereas if they'd been wearing a seatbelt they wouldn't have had to. It's the same kind of thing. Regulations in the online environment is very similar to that. It's about increasing our safety and allowing us the use of such a thing, but without it having a detrimental effect on us. So last year, the Commission on the Status of Women, which is a big global member states-run process setting global norms around gender equality, there was a big focus on this kind of tech-related violence. And member states there agreed that we all need to work together to reduce this kind of violence and to develop the kind of world that we want. The agreement actually was preventing and eliminating all forms of violence, including this kind of violence online. And so I think that's an important thing to know as well, because India was a part of those agreements. So I'm just going to skip through some of my notes a little bit, but just going to some of the work that we've done in India. 16 days of activism. In 2021, we had a big focus on online violence, actually, and we did a massive online campaign. And we also did things like wrapping the Delhi trains in messages about cybersecurity and what is online violence and what you can do to try and find help. And we always do these kinds of campaigns in partnership with others. So I think there's probably more we can do that's sort of low-hanging fruit around getting information and knowledge out to especially women and girls, but also men and boys about this kind of thing. And I'll just change my yes. So I mean, there's many things we can do together, and I look forward to hearing more from this forum about what we can do together on this kind of violence. And I think we need to learn from each other, especially from younger people, as to what are the issues young women are experiencing and what are the ideas young women and young men have on how to improve safety and security. I feel like there is so much to learn from young people in this area as well. Older feminists, we have many of the tools and the knowledge about gender-based violence, but this whole area we really need to engage much more with the youth in the country. So thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me today.